Hello my peeps! This is Kat, aka Kakibot, and today I'm coming back with yet another one of my monthly roundups. This time, probably, to be expected, it's the month of February, and we're gonna be having a little walk outside to see what Edinburgh looks like in Feb. We're gonna be talking about some events that are going on, some things that you shouldn't miss, and obviously weather. And whether or not it is a good idea at all to visit Edinburgh in this month. Okay, so a TLDR version would be maybe not. I think that February genuinely is the worst time to visit Edinburgh. Obviously, this comes with some upsides because it will be less busy and you might just have like more space for yourself, not having to avoid other travelers, visitors. So yeah, like that, there's a little silver lining on it, but yeah, we're gonna get into why you might not wanna come soon. First up though, I'm gonna cut right back to possibly your favorite part of these videos, which is some of the pretty B-roll from the city. Let's go! You've seen that in the footage it didn't look all that bad, which is mostly because my camera doesn't super like being in wind and rain, although some of those shots were actually shot in quite bad wind. And maybe now this is a message to Future Cat when you're editing this: don't put the super windy bits into the main cut, put them here, just to illustrate how hard it can be to be shooting B-roll when it's like 50 miles per hour gusts. It was quite challenging, but I did it for you. Yes, we did have like back-to-back storms, just like how I mentioned it in the January video. When I say storm, I mean mostly wind. It seemed like there would be just like no respite from all that wind. It was like you would always get one storm, then one day of pretty weather, then another storm, maybe followed by another storm, one day of pretty weather. So yeah, I usually take that one day of pretty weather and just like go out in the morning before I start my workday, take some nice shots and then like run back. We also had like one day of snow where like the snow sort of stuck around for I don't know, like 2 hours in the morning. So I think that if you were visiting, there would probably be a chance that like you have the flexibility to come out and take some nice snowy pictures. Temperature wise, on the thermometer it seems like it's fairly okay, fairly mild. You might get temperatures from 4 degrees to 9 degrees, but it's the wind. Like the wind gets so bitey cold this time of year. So keep that in mind. Once again, when it comes to your clothing, your gear, pack stuff that can really kind of keep you safe from the wind. Earmuffs if you want to be cute, like me. Hat if you want to be less cute, like Simon. And some, good windproof jackets, all of that. Obviously there might also be some wetness going on, but I think if you're coming to Scotland, you're going to be ready for that anyway. Okay, so I think that what's important to keep in mind also, like when I say all of these storms are happening, and maybe I would even like dare say that's like half of all February was like extreme wind, to the extent where I've heard from multiple people that they had their trains rescheduled, flights were cancelled. Like you can go online and like Google the compilations of pilots trying to land flights in this weather, and it's terrifying. Like it's kind of like morbidly fascinating, but it's terrifying, especially for someone like Simon who really doesn't like flying. If you're, in that category of people, keep that in mind. Like it really might mess with your plans. I think that not everyone is in a life situation where they can just like stay in Edinburgh for 3 extra days, because that's the first alternative flight they can take. Plus, maybe there might be another storm coming. So yeah, I think that both from the point of view of comfort and safety when it comes to making plans, February just is not optimal. Now let's talk about some of the things that are unique and interesting about February. You probably know that, all over the world you will have Valentine's Day. That's not really that interesting. I think that if you're in the UK for Valentine's Day, one thing that you have to do is you have to go to M&S and buy yourself a love sausage, because that has become a tradition in the past couple of years. M&S rolls out that tasty love sausage, and I think that that's like the most British thing that I've ever seen, the Valentine's Day love sausage. Yeah, but let's not linger on Valentine's Day too much, because if you're in a nice relationship, you don't need it, and if you're single, then it's just an annoying day. One day that does usually fall into February is Shrove Tuesday, aka Fat Tuesday. You can probably already see where I'm going with this. There's going to be tasty stuff involved, and that is in UK pancakes. So for Christians, Shrove Tuesday was essentially one of the last days before the Lent starts, and during Lent you wouldn't be allowed to eat any animal products. So basically people would take all of their like eggs and milk and butter and try to eat it all. I mean, I imagine that at certain points in history there wouldn't be that many eggs and butter and milk, and nowadays we don't really follow Lent, so maybe there was like a small amount of like actual time in history where people would be like, oh my god, what am I gonna do with all this butter and eggs? Pancakes. But it's a nice tradition to follow. I think that, again, if you go to the stores, you're gonna see that everyone just like rolls out their pancake mixes and like fresh fruit and berries. If you're visiting and if you have any friends here who have been here for a while, it's always a really fun day to kind of like get together. If it falls, wow, I literally just was about to say, if Shrove Tuesday falls on a weekend. That's not great. So it's not ideal for brunching, but pancakes for dinner, I'm up for it. Anytime. Hit me up for some pancakes for dinner. And now let's move from pancakes to sport, because another thing that happens in February and kind of like extends into March is the Six Nations Championship. That is a rugby championship, arguably the most important one within Europe. On the world stage you would have the World Championship, but like I think that over here we just prefer our small little European one, even though like it's not really European because it's literally just Six Nations and it's always the same Six Nations. It used to be just the home nations, so it would be like the 4 nations of the Union, but then they added France. I don't understand how France pulls that off, like with Britain. Like what sort of diplomacy happened there? That's the British countries were like, yeah, sure, France, you can join us. That's unusual. And then in 2000 Italy also joined. So since 2000s we have the Six Nations officially being Six Nations. What happens is that each of these nations, which is, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, England, Italy, France, all of those nations get to have a rugby match against all the other 5. And at the end of it, you have like the supreme rugby leader. Actually, the slightly sad thing is that since 2000, which, was the start of the Six Nations as we know them today, only 2 nations never won the championship, which is Italy and Scotland. So I think that since then you can really see people like rooting for Scotland, hoping for the best, but spoiler, Scotland is not doing that great in this year's championship, so yeah. I think that if you're into sport, if you're into rugby, this might be a really cool time to visit Edinburgh. I think that if you really get into that sort of like sport spectatorship, visiting a nice pub on a day when like a game is on might be a really unique experience. For me, it kind of goes the other way. Like if you're like me and you're like not interested in it and you don't like crowds and you don't like stepping into broken pint glasses, on the pavement, maybe try to like plan around it, just something to keep an eye out for, because I would say especially when there's a game on in Edinburgh, which does happen, you will see that there's a lot of crowds. They're kind of like traveling to the stadium. It might be quite disruptive for transportation. So maybe like if you're traveling to the airport on the day of a game that takes place in Edinburgh, because that usually takes place in Murrayfield, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And that's kind of on the way to the airport from the city center. So like if that's happening, just, you know, give yourself maybe an extra 30 minutes or so, because like things can get quite congested on the way west. So those were my pro tips for visiting Edinburgh while Six Nations are on. And now I just remember that I want to roll back to Shrove Tuesday, because as you can see, I'm into it. Because if you're not into pancakes, you might at least want to visit one of our Swedish bakeries. So that's, you know, all the Söderbergs, but it's not just Söderberg that does this. It's the semla buns, which is like the Swedish sort of pre-Lent bake, and it's like a nice little sort of like fluffy, yeasty bun with whipped cream, and I think that sometimes traditionally you also get almond paste. So this is not Scottish, but it's kind of fun to me to observe, just because we have so many Swedish bakeries around here, and they're like such an institution among especially like students in Edinburgh. I think that this is something you shouldn't miss out on. Okay, so finally, maybe I am making a video that will not be super long. I really think that there's not that much going on in Edinburgh in February, but if I'm wrong, please correct me down in the comments below, but please just be nice about it. Like I don't want to be shouted at. Please be nice, please be gentle with me. Maybe it's just because like it literally was so stormy and so windy. It wasn't quite the time to like go out and attend events and things like that. Yeah, that really wasn't on our mind. But yeah, if you're coming in February, stay safe, stay warm, make sure you have some backup plans if the weather gets horrible, and I still hope that you are gonna have a great time, because maybe at least you're gonna avoid a lot of people, and that is also a great thing. Okay, as always, you can visit me on Instagram. I will super appreciate any support there for the stuff I make. That is kakibot for my art and kakiblog for my photography, and also like stories from my everyday life here in Edinburgh. I am also on TikTok, if you're interested, also under kakibot, and I also have an Etsy store, and I'm gonna link that down in the doobly-doo. I think that right now my Etsy store is essentially the best way of supporting me financially, and as a bonus you actually get a thing for it. So it's not like on Patreon, at least for now, it's not like that. You will actually be buying a thing for me. You will have a physical thing that you can wear on your lapel and be very stylish and tell the whole world how much you love Scotland, because all of my stuff is Scottish themed. Okay, that I think is truly it. I just got weirdly kind of hyped in this video. As much as I was saying that February sucks, well, maybe I am hyped that next month is March, and that I think is like the first month when we're really starting to see some like nice nature waking up. Although, again, another backtrack, you can actually see some snowdrops and crocuses this time of year in February, but it's gonna only get better now. I believe it. The days are getting longer, and it's gonna be great. Okay, a very long outro, I'm sorry, but thank you for watching, and I shall see you soon.